Hello everyone, this is part 2 video of NCERT as it is review on polymers. This is the part 2 and second the last part as well. In part 1, right, we talked about what is the basic idea of polymers, and then we looked at the classification of polymers based on different criteria, right, based on the structure, based on the mode of polymerization, and based on the intermolecular forces. How do we classify the polymers, that we have seen. And also we covered the addition polymerization, chain growth polymerization mechanism. Now what we will begin with is we will begin with the mechanism of the step growth polymerization, condensation polymerization. So what happens in this step growth polymerization? There will be a repetitive condensation of the monomer units. Generally these monomers, right, they will be bifunctional. Sometimes we can also have trifunctional monomers, especially when we require the cross linking, right, we will be reading trifunctional. We will see some examples of that also. But what happens in the condensation, already we have got some basic idea, right? What happens in the part 1 video, we discussed about it. There will be the loss of these simple molecules like water, alcohol, HCl. As a result of it, the monomers will get condensed to give rise to a high molecular mass polymer. How this happens in a step-by-step manner, right? That is the reason why we are calling it as what? Step growth polymerization. We will see an example. Okay, so the example that we will start with is the formation of terylene or dacron. It belongs to a class of polymers what we call as polyesters. So nylons, right, they belong to polyamides category, and terylene belongs to what? Polyesters. So let us see how the terylene formation actually happens. So the monomers for this is ethylene glycol and then terephthalic acid. So we will see the structures itself. Ethylene glycol is what? Ethane 1,2 diol. We see there are two functional groups, bifunctional. Terephthalic acid is benzene 1,4 dicarboxylic acid. On the benzene ring we will have carboxylic groups at both the para position with respect to each other. This is also what? Bifunctional. Now there will be a condensation. So here what is it? I am sure this is something that we have been seeing from our 10th standard itself. Esterification, removal of water. Acid and alcohol, right? Removal of water means what? We will get esterification. So here in this we are saying n monomer units and n monomer units, but if you just begin with one monomer of ethylene glycol and one monomer of terephthalic acid, what happens? This part as it is will remain. OH, CH2, CH2O, then we have CO, then comes the benzene ring part, then COOH. This is the species or unit, whatever we call it, that is obtained after the first step of condensation. So why are we calling it as an polyester? Because you see ester group. Now the species that we obtained, right, it is having two functional groups. This side we have a alcohol group, that side we have what? Carboxylic group. It's also what? Bifunctional. So after every step of the condensation we are getting a species which itself is what? Bifunctional. This can further undergo condensation. See, alcohol means what? It can undergo condensation with acid, terephthalic acid. Acid group means what? It can undergo condensation with ethylene glycol. So this will keep on. So after every step, right, this way step by step the condensation happens. After every step we are going to get an entity or species which itself is bifunctional, that can further undergo condensation. That is the reason why we call it as what? Step growth polymerization. Now the thing is, when we want to obtain what is the overall structure, see here the alcohol group undergoing condensation means what? Hydrogen will be removed. The acid undergoing condensation means OH will be removed. Just remove those two and write as it is, whatever is. So OCH2, CH2OCO, ester part, benzene ring, then CO. So this will be the repeating unit, and if you put it within the parenthesis then indicate N, right, that will be what? The structure of the polymer, terylene or dacron, that's it. So this is what? This is the structure of terylene or Dacron. I mean, so it has got one more name, PET. I'm sure we would have normally the PET bottles that you use, right? They are made up of what? Terylene or Dacron. So we'll see that as we go into further discussion. But yeah, so this is about the condensation polymerization or the step growth polymerization. So we'll see the step growth polymerization, right? After every step of condensation, there will be a bifunctional species like we have seen. So after the first step of condensation, we are getting what? This itself is a bifunctional species. And this will further go condensation in sequence, step by step. And that is how we are able to get the larger polymer molecule. So that is the reason why we call it as what? Step growth. In case of addition, it is what? Chain growth. This is what? Step growth polymerization. So here, this is a possible question. So we have to keep a note of all these polymers and their structures. So wherever we have the structures, right, that can be a possible question. In fact, you can look at the past year papers. All these have already been asked. And one more thing, in NCERT, right, just make a note of it. In NCERT, there is some slight error that is made in the structure of the terylene or Dacron. Okay, so they have not given the ester part. Okay, so just check that one. Next, we will go into some more examples. Polyamides, nylon family. So polyamides, right, nylon family, they are what? Fibers, strong intermolecular forces. Okay, so the nylons, how they will be obtained? We have seen already the example of nylon 6,6. How do we obtain the nylon 6,6? Adipic acid, which is a dicarboxylic acid, and hexamethylene diamine. So we will obtain the polyamides by using what? Diamines condensed with dicarboxylic acids. And we will also have one more way of getting the polyamides, that is from the lactams. So we will see something called as caprolactam. It is a ring compound. Okay, so we will see how, so from this, right, we will be getting a polymer called as a nylon 6. We will talk about it. Okay, so either we will have the condensation between what? Diamines and then dicarboxylic acids, or we will obtain the polyamides from the corresponding lactams. So we will start with what we already seen, nylon 6,6, right, hexamethylene, diamine and adipic acid. So hexamethylene diamine, right, 6 carbons. Adipic acid is also what? 6 carbons. Okay, so condensation means what? From NH2 group, hydrogen will be removed. From acid, OH, water is removed. At a high pressure and 553 Kelvin temperature range, right, we will have condensation. You see, after the first step of, this is also what? Step growth. After first step of condensation, what happens? This side we will be having what? COH as it is. CH2 4 times. CONH, this is a amide. CH2 6 times. NH2. Now the species that we obtained after the first step of condensation, right, this is what? This is also bifunctional. It is having COH and also it is having what? NH2. This will undergo further condensation steps. And if you want to know what is the overall structure, right, you see, from the COH we have to remove the OH. From the NH2 group we have to remove one hydrogen. The remaining part is going to be the repeating unit. Of course, here they have reversed in the reverse order, but yeah, you can read either ways. So you see here, what is this? CO, CH2 4 times, CONH, CH2 6 times, NH. This is the repeating unit. You can write in the reverse also, starting from nitrogen. That way also you can write. Okay, so this is what is the structure of the nylon 6,6. Again, I am saying all these structures, whether it is Dacron or nylon 6,6, all these structures will be important from the questions point of view. So nylon 6,6, right, it is a fiber. It is used in making sheets, the bristles of the brushes, like the paint brushes and toothbrush and all these things, right, the bristles, they are made up of what? Nylon 6,6. and they are also used in the textile industry. See, we'll have to focus on what are the prominent applications. Here, we can remember this one, the bristles of the brushes, right? That is obtained from what nylon? 6,6. Sometimes, right, we can have different polymers used in the same application, but unique applications, right? That is what we need to remember. Okay, like, if you talk about Teflon, so what is the thing? Already in the part 1 video we discussed about it. So for Teflon, right, the thing that we say is the non-sticky surface coating. Okay, so that is the thing that we need to remember. So like that, whatever the peculiar applications, right, or the prominent selective applications, based on that only we can expect some questions. Next we have nylon 6 formation. This is also a polyamide from caprolactam. So caprolactam, when we do the hydrolysis, the ring structure will be broken. So the nitrogen will get a hydrogen. Here we will have a OH group. We will get what? Amino caproic acid. We just write. So this is what? NH2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So CH2 5 times. COOH. What is this? Amino caproic acid. This will undergo the condensation. So condensation means what? From the carboxylic acid we have to take out the OH. From the nitrogen of the amino group we have to take one hydrogen. That will be the repeating unit. Either you write this way or reverse also we can write. See, what is it? CO CH2 5 times NH. That is the repeating unit of the nylon 6. So nylon 6 is also it's a fiber. It is used in the manufacture of tire cords, fabrics, as well as the ropes. Okay, because generally when you are making the ropes, right, it will require high tensile strength. So let us see how the caprolactam is obtained. Okay, so this is a little bit beyond the NCERT. So starting from cyclohexanone. So if we have cyclohexanone, right, when we react this with hydroxylamine, NH2OH is what? Hydroxylamine, we will get the corresponding oxime will come. Oxime will undergo Beckmann rearrangement, a ring expansion. The nitrogen will come into the ring. That will give us what? Caprolactam. Caprolactam is what? What is the number of atoms inside the ring? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 atoms in the ring. It's a 7-membered ring. Sometimes we can also be getting questions like this. Caprolactam is a how many membered ring, like that. So what is the number of atoms that are forming the ring? It is the 7-membered ring. So this is how. So the corresponding lactams will do hydrolysis followed by condensation. And here, right, why are we calling it as just nylon 6? Because the monomer is a single monomer here. We don't have two monomers. Monomer is what? Caprolactam. Caprolactam has got, in the ring we have 7 atoms, but one of them is nitrogen. Only 6 carbons are there. That's why it is called as what? Nylon 6. And then see these nylons, right? We also have some more examples. Like there is one more thing called as nylon 6,10. So nylon 6,10, right? That is basically we'll obtain it from same hexamethylene diamine, NH2 CH2 6 times NH2 hexamethylene diamine, and sebacic acid. Sebacic acid is a 10-membered dicarboxylic acid. COOH, CH2 8 times COH. You see, one is having 6 carbons, hexamethylene diamine. Sebacic acid is having what? 10 carbons. That is why it is called as what? Nylon 6,10. Okay, that is how the nomenclature actually comes. Just make a note of it. Next, we will get into the discussion about the polyesters. Already we have seen terylene, right? Terylene, which can be also called as a Dacron, is a polyester. You can see here. How do we obtain it? From ethylene glycol and then terephthalic acid. Both the for the benzene ring we have 2 carboxylic groups attached, both in the para position with respect to each other. That is the terephthalic acid. The condensation rate will give us the polyethylene terephthalate. That's why we can also call it as what? PET. The PET bottles that you see, right, they are made up of what? Polyethylene terephthalate. Commercially we can also call it as what? Terylene or Dacron. So the Other possible question is the reaction conditions. You see here the condensation rate happens at 422 460 Kelvin in the presence of zinc acetate and antimony trioxide as a catalyst. See, this is what we keep on saying. Sometimes while we are looking for, where and all the questions will come from, the question might just be framed on this. They will ask, what is the catalyst used in the formation of the terylene. Okay, so we should remember these kind of questions also. What is it? Zinc acetate with antimony trioxide. Now already we have seen the mechanism for the formation of terylene. Here we look at the uses. So this Dacron, right, or terylene is a crease resistant substance. Means what, normally when you look at clothing, you use it, right, it will form these lines on the clothing. If you are not able to get those lines, means you will say what it is, crease resistant. Because of this property, right, it will be even blended with the regular cotton as well as wool fibers, so that it can give us the overall crease resistant property. And this is important. These are the peculiar uses. It is used as a glass reinforcing material and in safety helmets. Like, when we are having a question on the terylene or Dacron, right, where they form the question based on the applications, they will probably give with this. They'll say, a polymer which is used as glass reinforcing material as well as in safety helmets. What are the monomers for that? Like that they can form questions. So what are the monomers for that? We know the polymer is basically terylene or Dacron. Monomers are what? Ethylene glycol and then terephthalic acid. So the polyesters in general, right, are formed by the polycondensation from dicarboxylic acids and diols. It's basically what? Esterification. And we have seen the mechanism also already. We have one more important polyester in NCERT, right? They have just given it in the book end. That is glyptol. Glyptol monomers are same, ethylene glycol, but acid is different. It is not terephthalic acid, it is what? Phthalic acid. What is phthalic acid? It is same benzene ring, we have two carboxylic groups, but in the ortho position with each other. This is what? Phthalic acid. Ethylene glycol means CH2 OH, CH2OH. Now when they undergo the condensation, right, you see here from acid OH, from alcohol hydrogen, remove that. We will be forming what? CH2. This side will have OH. Then there will be a CH2. OCO. Then we will have a benzene ring. And then we will have a COOH. So this is what is the unit that is formed after first step of condensation. Remember condensation, what we will do? Step by step, right? After first step of condensation, we will get this. If you want to know what is the overall polymer structure, you see here, this is having what? An alcohol group. From this we have to remove the hydrogen. Acid group. From this we will remove the OH part. Whatever is inside, right, that will be the repeating unit structure. You see here, what is it? OCH2CH2 COO. This is the ester. Ortho position, both the carboxyl groups will be attached. So this is the structure of the glyptol. See, the structures are important. It is used in what? Manufacturing of the paints as well as the lacquers. Then we will go into these formaldehyde based polymers. So first we will see the phenol formaldehyde polymer, bakelite. So already we have mentioned about it when we discussed about the cross linkage network polymer, 3D-dimensional polymer and network polymer, right? We discussed about it. At the same time, we also gave it as an example of the thermosetting polymer. Means what? On heating, they will form a infusible substance, hard infusible substance. Okay, we will see what is the reason why the bakelite actually becomes a thermosetting polymer. So the condensation reaction of phenol with formaldehyde, right, in the presence of either an acid or a base as a catalyst. Okay, so we'll so here these wordings are little bit confusing, but we'll see what is the actual process that happens. So we have a phenol and formaldehyde. when they are reacting in the presence of an acid or a base, either medium. First, what we will be forming is, we can have an ortho substitution or a ortho and para. This is what ortho substitution. This is what ortho and para. This is what ortho and para substitution. The first reaction step, right, can give us what? A variety of substituted products of the phenol. Okay, so first what happens? The initial will be what? Formation of ortho, and we also have a mixture possibility. Ortho para hydroxymethyl phenol derivatives. So what we are having is basically hydroxymethyl derivatives of the phenol. That is what is getting formed. Now for the sake of simplicity, right, let us assume that we are having just the ortho derivative. If the ortho derivative is forming a linear polymer, so if the ortho derivative is forming a linear polymer, so you see here from the ortho derivative, right, so here by using a proton we can remove the OH part, and thereby what we will be able to obtain, you see here what we will be able to obtain, OH, CH2, the OH is removed. This will be linked to one more unit, OH, this side CH2, and this goes on. This is what it is, a linear polymer structure. This is what we will be calling as Novolac. So Novolac is what we can say, it is a resin or intermediate. Okay, so it is a linear polymer intermediate. What is it? It's a linear polymer intermediate. Okay, and from Novolac, right, we will be able to obtain the Bakelite. Okay, so sometimes we can even get questions on this. What is the structure of Novolac? Means you see what is the repeating unit? This is the repeating unit, right? So what is the repeating unit here? Benzene ring, OH, CH2. This is the repeating unit part. That is how we can represent the structure of the Novolac. So how do we obtain the Bakelite? Bakelite is what? It's a three-dimensional polymer. So Bakelite can be obtained, so we'll see, this is the structure of Bakelite, but we'll see how this will be obtained. If you have a ortho and an ortho para substituted phenol, see, from the ortho linkage, right, we'll get what? The normal linear bonding, as we have seen in the case of the formation of Novolac. What you will have? You will have a linear. So you will see here what we will have. There will be a linear OH, CH2. Then we will have what? OH, CH2, and so on. They will be linear. But you see here we have para position, we have what? A CH2OH. This can form a cross linking with another linear chain. See what is going to happen? This will form a cross linking with another linear chain. So that is how we will be able to obtain the three-dimensional network. What is it called as? It will be called as a Bakelite. So Bakelite we can obtain from what? The reaction between the ortho and ortho para substituted forms of phenol. And also it can be obtained, see, once we have formed Novolac, right, if we are treating Novolac with formaldehyde and heating that mixture, we have Novolac heated with what? Formaldehyde. So formaldehyde, Novolac is what? The linear polymer. So we have one more linear polymer. The formaldehyde, right? What is formaldehyde? We can write it like what? CH2O, formaldehyde. We know what is it? We can write it like this, right? CH2O. From this the oxygen is removed. From a carbon over here, hydrogen, carbon over here, hydrogen. Totally water will be removed. We will get what? Thereby the CH2 linkage will come here. In between the Novolac linear chains, right, we will get what? CH2 linkage. This is what is the Bakelite formation. So the infusible solid mass Bakelite, right, will be formed when we are mixing the Novolac with some more formaldehyde and then heating it. And this is the reason why we are able to get the excess cross linking. So remember, we talked about it. So upon heating, right, we are getting what? Excess cross linking. Because of this, it is forming an infusible solid. And this makes it suitable for some specific applications, like, for making of the combs, or phonograph records, electrical switches, even the handles of various utensils, right, you see it will be very hard. What is it? It is made up of Bakelite. So Bakelite is what? We can see Bakelite as an example of what? A cross linking or a network polymer, as well as it is also example of what? Thermosetting polymer. On heating it is becoming what? Infusible solid. The next formaldehyde polymer we have is a melamine formaldehyde. So melamine is what? It's a 6-membered ring compound, 3 nitrogens and 3 carbons alternatively. Each of these carbons, right, they are bonded to the amino groups. When it will react with the formaldehyde, you see there will be an intermediate resin, viscous liquid, that will be formed. So you see here what is happening to this NH2, right? We'll have what? NH, CH2, OH. That is the group. From this resin, right, we'll have the polymerization. So you see here when we arrange all these monomers, right, what happens is from here we can remove the OH, from amino group one hydrogen, removal of water. From here one OH group, from an amino group hydrogen. When we remove them, right, one thing is we will form a linear bonding. So you can see here what is the repeating unit? NH, the ring, NHCH2. This is the repeating unit. At the same time, what will also happen is, look at this amino group, right? This is having hydrogens that can be removed, and that will give rise to the cross-linking. Between the linear chains, we will have the cross-linking. That is the reason why this also is what? Is an example of the 3-dimensional polymer or cross-linking polymer. And melamine formaldehyde, right, it is used in the manufacturing of the unbreakable crockery. Like you see these dishes and all that, right, that are used in kitchen, you will see them marked as, unbreakable and all that. Then we have one more. In the NCERT, they have just given it as the, the examples of the polymers and the uses, but we will discuss in detail. Urea formaldehyde is it. In fact, if you remember, right, we gave this example of what? Thermosetting polymer. And this is also cross-linking polymer. Urea and formaldehyde. So urea is what? NH2, CO, NH2. Formaldehyde is what? CH2O, or we can read it as what? H. This is formaldehyde. Same mechanism like what we have seen before, right? What happens? First there will be the resin formation. Okay, so we are talking about the resin only here, and then there will be the polymerization also. So resin means what? We will get NH2, CO, NH, CH2OH. This is the resin that will be formed, and from the resin, when it undergoes polymerization, right, you see here what happens. From here the OH will be removed from, we have to have adjacent unit. From the amino group we have the hydrogen removed. Thereby we will have the repeating unit. So you see what is the repeating unit? NH, CONH, CH2. This is the repeating unit for the urea formaldehyde resin. But the thing is, the resin, right, is a linear chain. We can also have the cross-linking happening, because remember the amino group inside the chain, right, that is having the hydrogens. You see here what is it? The amino group here is having what? Hydrogens. This can help in the formation of the cross-linking. You see what can happen when urea and formaldehyde, they are forming the condensation polymer, right? While you can have a linear chain, there is also a possibility of the cross-linking. The cross-linking rate is what makes it the 3-dimensional polymer. Not only that, because of the formation of the cross-linking rate, when you heat it, because of the formation of the cross-linking, this will be able to convert itself into an infusible mass. That is the reason why we categorize it as what? Thermosetting polymer. Because of the formation of the cross-linking rate. So one chain, another chain, we will have the cross-linking. That entire substance becomes what? A hard mass, infusible hard mass. That is the reason why we call it as what? Thermosetting polymer. So bakelite is also example of what? Thermosetting polymer. Okay. So where is this used? It is used in the making of unbreakable cups as well as laminated sheets. Look at this. We have some in-text questions. Write the names of the monomers for the corresponding polymers. What is this? This is what? I'm sure by looking at this, because we have been going through it, right? By looking at the structure itself, we can say what is it? It is nylon 6,6. What are the monomers? Hexamethylene diamine and then adipic acid. Adipic acid is a 6 carbon dibasic acid. Then what is this? This is nylon 6 CO CH2 5 times NH. This is what nylon 6. What is the monomer for that? It is the caprolactam. Caprolactam on doing the hydrolysis, right, will form aminocaproic acid, and condensation will give us what? The nylon 6. What is this? Teflon. What is the monomer for that? CF2 double bond CF2. Tetrafluoroethene. Okay. Then classify the following as addition condensation polymers. Terylene, Dacron. What is this? We can also call it as PET. What is this? Polyester. It is a condensation. Bakelite, condensation, right? It is a phenol formaldehyde polymer. What is it? It is a condensation polymer. PVC, polyvinyl chloride. What is vinyl chloride? CH2 double bond CHCl. This is vinyl chloride. Polyvinyl chloride, right, will have what? This is the repeating unit structure. It's an addition polymer. Because of unsaturation, right, that will form what? It will be forming an addition polymer. Polyethene, it's a very classic example. What is it? Ethene will be forming addition polymer. So in this, what is it? PVC and polyethene, they both are what? Addition. Terylene and then bakelite are what? Condensation polymers. Okay. So we have solved these questions. Next we will go into the discussion about the copolymerization. So copolymerization means what? The polymerization reaction in which more than one monomeric species is allowed to undergo polymerization. Okay, so one of the example that we already discussed is the formation of butadiene styrene copolymer. In fact, we also call it as SBR, styrene butadiene rubber. Okay, so 1,3-butadiene with styrene copolymerization. It will be giving us what? BUNA-S. We can also call it as what? SBR. Okay, so this example we already seen in the first part video itself. What is it? It's an addition polymer with two different types of monomers. Okay, I mean we can have more types of copolymers also, but we are just looking at the simple case. Two different type of monomers are there. You see what happens here? Again, quickly we will discuss. When these pi bonds are removed, right, CH2 will have the valency deficit. Styrene also. When we remove the pi bond of the styrene, means we will have what? Valency deficit. Now the valency deficit will be adjusted by the addition. So we will have a bond formed here. Same time this will be a polymer chain, right? This side also will have the bonds formed. So as a result, what happens? The valency deficit requirement will be completed for this carbon because it is forming a bond. These two carbons, this carbon also. Only the middle ones you see, right? These two are still having the valency deficit. So they will form a additional bond. And they form additional bond means what? That is the polymer structure. So what is this? This is the butadiene styrene copolymer. We also call it as what? BUNA-S. We can also call it as what? SBR, styrene butadiene rubber. Okay. The copolymers, right? What is the reason for having copolymers? Because they will be able to give us very specific properties. And the properties, right, they can be different from the homopolymers. Okay. The actual homopolymers, polystyrene, the properties of butadiene styrene, right, they can be totally different from the polystyrene properties. So this SBR, right, is quite tough and is a substitute for the natural rubber. Okay, so this is used in footwear components, cable insulation, even the bubble gum, right? The bubble gum also will be using what? The BUNA-S. So this is basically a synthetic rubber. Okay, so we'll see that there will be a couple of more examples of synthetic rubber. BUNA-N. Okay, We'll see some more examples of the synthetic rubbers later. Okay, but before we go to the synthetic rubbers, right, let us look at the natural rubber. What is a natural rubber? It is a natural polymer. We obtain this naturally. A natural rubber, right, it has got elastic properties. That is why we categorize it as what? Elastomer. The intermolecular forces are weak van der Waals forces. Okay. So how do we manufacture this? It is manufactured from the rubber latex, which is what? A colloidal dispersion of the rubber in water. So we'll get the rubber latex, that is a colloidal dispersion of the rubber in water. Okay. So where do we get this latex? It is obtained from the bark of the trees, right? We'll be able to obtain the latex from that. Okay, so typically we'll have even in India also we have these the plantations basically. So in India we have Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Malaysia, South America. There are a lot of places where we have the availability of the natural rubber. But so nobody will ask us question on where and all we will find it, but we can have possible question on the structure. What is the natural rubber? It is a linear polymer of isoprene. So what is isoprene? 2-methyl-1,3-butadiene. So it's a cis form. The natural rubber, right? It's a cis 1,4 polyisoprene. So we'll see what is it. So isoprene is what? This is the isoprene. Okay. So isoprene, when it is undergoing the polymerization. So look at it. How it will undergo polymerization? There is unsaturation. There are two double bonds. Remove the pi bonds, what we'll have? Look at this. If you remove the pi bonds, means there is a valency deficit. You see here, this carbon, valency deficit. This is having what? Valency deficit. Valency deficit. Okay. Now this can form a polymer chain. When it is forming polymer chain means what? The terminal carbons, their valency requirement is completed. Only the middle ones, right? They are still one valency deficit. So what they will do? They will form an additional bond. You see here, they will form an additional bond. So that is what is the natural rubber. What is it? Cis polyisoprene. But why are we calling it as a cis? You see, with respect to this double bond, right? The bulkier groups. Where are the bulkier groups? The bulkier groups are on the same set of double bond. That's why we call it as what? Cis. So this is a possible question. Huh? The natural rubber is what? Cis polyisoprene. And what is the monomer for that? The monomer for this is what? Isoprene is the monomer. Okay. And these linear chains, right, are held together by the weak van der Waals forces. And that is the reason why they can be, because the force of interaction are weaker, right, they can be stretched. And they will exhibit the properties of what we call as the elastomer. They can be easily stretched. Okay. The other form of rubber that we can obtain, this is also naturally occurring. What is it? It's called as trans polyisoprene. It is obtained from gutta percha. So because it is a trans, so even this question has come in some of the previous years also. Gutta percha, right? It is a what? It is transform. Cis polyisoprene is a elastomer. But the transform that is obtained from the gutta percha, right? It is a thermoplastic because of the trans nature, right? Remember, the isomers cis and trans, they'll have different characteristics. So because of the trans nature of this gutta percha substance, right, we'll have what? The overall behavior is what? Thermoplastic in nature. So whereas the natural rubber is what? It is an elastomer. So because the elastomers can be easily deformed, and in order to make sure that they regain their original shape, right, we can create some kind of an cross-linking between the linear chains, right? We can create some kind of an cross-linking, and that is what will be happening through the sulfur cross-linking. That is what we will refer to as the vulcanization of the rubber. Natural rubber, right, it becomes soft when you heat it above 335 Kelvin. and becomes brittle. It will easily break down at a temperature which is less than 283. Means what? The range of operation of temperature is very limited. You go below 283, it is becoming what? Brittle, breaks down easily. You go above 335, it is becoming what? Soft. And also this will show natural rubber, right? High water absorption capacity. It will easily absorb water, lot of water. And also it is soluble in non-polar solvents. And also it is non-resistant to the attack by the oxidizing agent. So all these characteristics, right, make the natural rubber not very much suitable for the regular usage. We can improve on these physical characteristics by the process of the vulcanization. So vulcanization is nothing but it's a very simple idea. What is it? Heating a mixture of raw rubber and sulfur, that's it. With appropriate additive. The temperature for this, we will not get questions on asking about temperature. Temperature is what? 373 to 415. Then what happens is there will be a sulfur cross-linking. You see here, this is a linear chain. They will have what? A sulfur cross-linking that will happen. Why the sulfur cross-linking is occurring? Because of the unsaturation. You see there is a double bond, right? There is a double bond. So if you remove the pi bond, both these carbons will now require to fill valency. So we will have the sulfur linkage. Between different linear chains, we will have the sulfur linkage. And sulfur linkage is possible. Vulcanization is possible because there are double bonds. So vulcanization of the sulfur, right, forms cross links at the reactive sites of the double bonds. And as a result, what happens? The rubber gets stiffened. Normally the tire rubber, right, will be adding 5% by weight. We will be using at 5% by weight. Okay. So we can increase the sulfur percentage, means what happens? The stiffness becomes more. As we increase the, so if you are looking at the tiles that is, the rubber that is used for the manufacturing of the tiles, etc., we will have to use a higher amount of sulfur. It has to become very hard and tough. Okay. So this is how we can possibly show the sulfur cross-linking. So depending upon the amount of sulfur that you are adding, right, the amount of cross-linking will be decided. If you are adding more amount of sulfur, means more cross-linking. If we add less amount of sulfur, means there will be less cross-linking. As we can see, right, more the amount of sulfur that you are adding, more cross-linking. More cross-linking means what? The rubber becomes that much more stiff. Okay, so this is about the vulcanization. Sometimes we can get some straight theoretical questions from the vulcanization also. What happens in vulcanization? The unsaturation sites in the linear chain, to that the sulfur will be added by forming the linkage between the linear chains, sulfur linkage. And more the amount of sulfur that is added, more linkages will be formed and more will be the stiffness of the rubber that is obtained. Okay. Now the other alternative is, one way is, we process the natural rubber by doing this vulcanization. The other way is we obtain the synthetic rubbers. Synthetic rubbers are supposed to have better properties than the natural rubber. So synthetic rubbers, right? Okay. What are those basically? They are any vulcanizable rubber like polymer which is capable of getting stretched to twice its length. Basically what you are talking about is elastic property. So whichever polymer can undergo vulcanization and have the elastic properties, that is what we can call as the synthetic rubber. But this should return back to the original shape and size as and when we remove the external stretching forces. So why do we do the cross linking in natural rubber? Because cross linking is not there, means we stretch it. The natural rubber will be just like that stretched. It will not be able to regain the shape. Cross linking actually helps the rubber to regain the shape. So synthetic rubber should have these two properties. It should get elongated. At the same time, it should also get the original shape and size. Once the stretching forces, we can also call them as what? Deforming forces are removed. Synthetic rubbers, right? We will see some examples because in our syllabus we have only some examples of synthetic rubber. They are either homopolymers of 1,3-butadiene derivatives. Okay, like you see here, this is what? Chloroprene is a derivative of 1,3-butadiene. Chloroprene, when it is undergoing the polymerization, right, we will get what? Neoprene. Just, I mean, how do we get the neoprene structure? Here we have a pi bond, remove it. Here we have a pi bond, remove it. These two carbons will form a, so you see here, the CH2, the chain will continue. These two carbons, right, will form a double bond. This is what is the, basically the two pi bonds are removed. The middle carbons will be still valency deficit. So you have to form an extra bond between them. That's it. So this is what is the structure of the neoprene. So neoprene or polychloroprene, right? It is formed by the free radical polymerization of the chloroprene. It's what? Addition polymerization. What is it? Because of unsaturation, right? The polymerization is what it is, an addition polymerization. Just like our PVC or polythene formation, this is also what? Addition polymerization. Okay, so we can have the synthetic rubbers obtained either from the homopolymers of 1,3-butadiene derivatives. Example for this is what? Neoprene. Or we can have the copolymers of 1,3-butadiene or its derivative with another unsaturated monomer. Like we saw the example of what? 1,3-butadiene with styrene. That is what we call as what? BuNaS. The copolymer between what? 1,3-butadiene and then styrene. Then we also have another example, BuNaN. It is a copolymer between 1,3-butadiene and acrylonitrile. Okay, so acrylonitrile itself can form a homopolymer. What is it called as? Polyacrylonitrile, PAN, PAN. So the copolymer of these two, right? Again, addition polymerization. You see what happens? Here if you remove the pi bond, remove the pi bond, remove the pi bond. Then CH2, CH double bond CH, because these two carbons will be valency deficit. We will have to form an extra bond. CH2, CH2, CHCN. This is the repeating unit. So what is this? This is the BuNaN. So we have seen BuNaS, styrene butadiene rubber, SBR. This is what? BuNaN. So BuNaN, right, is resistance to the action of petrol, lubricating oil and organic solvents. Okay, so that is the reason why it will be used in tank lining, and also it is used in making of the oil seals. So what is the difference between BuNaS and BuNaN? BuNaS is what? It is the copolymer between 1,3-butadiene and then styrene. BuNaN is what? Copolymer between 1,3-butadiene and then acrylonitrile. I mean, in fact, that itself is a question. Okay, so what are the difference between BuNaN and BuNaS? It is what? A copolymer of 1,3-butadiene with acrylonitrile, and this is what? 1,3-butadiene and styrene. And we can even talk about the difference in terms of the uses or applications. I mean, BuNaS, right, it is used in various places, including the rubber, the bubble gum that we use, right, that is also consisting of what? BuNaS. BuNaN we have seen, it is used in the tank lining, etc. So the synthetic rubber, right, it will always be able to bring in some very improvised characteristics than the natural rubber. That is the reason why we will be going for the synthetic rubbers. So look at the next question. Arrange the following polymers in increasing order of their intermolecular forces. Remember, intermolecular forces, what is the order? The order is what? Elastomers less than the thermoplastic less than the fibers. This is the order. Nylon 6,6. What is nylon 6,6? It is a fiber. We can also say nylon 6,6. BuNaS, synthetic rubber. It is what? Elastomer. Polythene. Polythene is what? It's a thermoplastic. Then next is what? Second one. This is the first one over. Second is what? Nylon 6 fiber. Neoprene synthetic rubber. Polyvinyl chloride, that is a thermoplastic, PVC. This is the second question. So just remember the order. What is it? The comparison is what? Comparison of the intermolecular forces. What is it? Elastomers, weak van der Waals forces. Thermoplastic they'll have intermediate fibers, right? Will have the strongest, either hydrogen bonding or ionic interactions. Strong interactions will be there for the fibers. Next we have the concept of molecular mass of polymers. So we know, polymers, right? The properties, they will depend upon what? The size, structure, as well as the molecular mass. So how do we find out the molecular mass of the polymer? Because remember, when we talk about the chain length, we were not even giving what is the value of this n, because the n will be what? Variable. So when we talk about the chain growth polymerization or step growth polymerization, right, the chain length that is formed can be variable because it depends upon the availability of the monomers in the reaction mixture. Let's say we have a chain whose molecular mass is m1. It's not like you have only one such chain. There can be some n1 such numbers. We can have a chain of molecular mass m2. There can be some n2 such chains. There can be a chain of molecular mass m3, and we can have n3 such numbers. So if you want to give the molecular mass of a polymer, right, we'll always have to give the average. Average means, here we'll talk about the weighted average. Weighted average means what? Number based weighted. So it will be what? n1 m1 plus n2 m2 and so on, divided by total number of polymer units, n1 plus n2 and so on. This is what we call as weighted average based on the number. We can even give this in the sigma notation. What is it? Sigma ni mi by sigma ni. So this is what? The average molecular mass of the polymer. So how do we obtain this experimentally, right? Remember, in solutions we talk about the colligative properties method. So colligative property method, we can find what is the molecular mass of the solute. So we can have both physical as well as the chemical methods to find out the molecular mass. That is not the anyway detailed point of discussion here, but we can have methods to find out. So I think in one of the years they have asked question about finding the average molecular mass of the polymer. Then when we generally look at things around us, right? So we'll have, if you look at the dumping places and all that, you will see a lot of these polythene bags lying around. I'm sure if you make an observation over a period of time, right, you will see that they are lying around like that for a lot of time. It's not like they are just going to vanish. Why they are lying there like that for a lot of time? Because these are resistant towards the environmental degradation. The bacteria in the soil and all that, they will not be able to degrade these polythene covers. And as a result, what happens is there will be accumulation of these polymeric wastage. Solid wastage, we remember we discussed this in +1 environmental chemistry chapter. They will cause various hazards, including the water pollution. They will also cause both harmful effects on both the plants, animals, as well as on the human beings also. These polymeric solid waste, right, they have to be reduced. So they can be reduced in two ways. One is we reduce the usage. The thing is, if you look at the grocery stores nowadays, right, they are not giving the polythene covers. What they're saying you bring your own luggage bag and take the groceries along with you. Or basically they are using jute bags and things like that. The other possibility is we go for the alternatives. So there can be biodegradable synthetic polymers. So we have alternative biodegradable polymers. What are those alternative biodegradable polymers? They should be degradable by the soil, bacteria and all these things. Even biological systems, they should be getting degraded. One of the best example for this is aliphatic polyesters. We will talk about very important in that category, PHBV, that is used quite a lot in the medicinal application and all that. The thing about these biodegradable synthetic polymers is they will have the same type of functional groups as that of the normal biopolymers. Naturally occurring biopolymers, whatever the functional groups they have, right? These synthetic biodegradable polymers also will have the same functional groups. We look at this PHBV. So what is this PHBV? Poly beta hydroxy butyrate. It's a copolymer. Beta hydroxy valerate. I mean, I have seen a lot of times students asking, why this crazy name PHBV? Because it is a polymer copolymeration with what? 3-hydroxybutanoic acid. See, carboxylic group, alpha, beta. That's why beta. 3-hydroxypentanoic acid, carboxylic, alpha, beta. In fact, if you want to look at, this is a simple structure that is given for the PHBV as per the NCERT. If you want to look at how this structure comes, right, we should rearrange and write. We should write this methyl group down, bring the OH here. So look at it, OH, CH, we will write the methyl down, CH2, COOH. Then we will write the ethyl down and put the OH here sideways, OH, CH, ethyl we will keep it down, CH2, CH3, CH2, COOH. You see there is a condensation. Condensation means what? Simple condensation is what? Removal of the water. From the carboxyl we will remove OH, from the alcohol hydrogen. So remove it, what will form? We will form the ester here. That's why the alkanoate. Okay. The further condensation rate will mean what? This side also the hydrogen will be removed based on the condensation. Here the OH group will be removed. So if you remove these two, right, we will get the overall repeating unit structure. So here what is it? O, CH, methyl group is attached. CH2, this is what? Ester part, COO. CH, ethyl group is attached. CH2CO. So this is the repeating unit of the PHBV. Poly beta hydroxy butyrate. Copolymer with what? Beta hydroxy valerate. See why this is the name valerate? Because what is the other name for the pentanoic acid? Valeric acid. Other name for the pentanoic acid is what? Valeric acid. That's why it's a common name basically. Okay. That should be clear to people, right? Because a lot of students will be, as I said, asking why this PHBV name, because it is the valeric acid is what? It is the common name for the pentanoic acid. Now if you look at in detail, right, because it is a little bit beyond our purview, but if you look at in detail, we can have a homopolymer of 3-hydroxybutanoic acid. We call it as PHB, homopolymer. We can also have a homopolymer of 3-hydroxypentanoic acid. We call it as what? PHV. So the copolymer rate will have both, like say X units of PHB and Y units of PHV, like that. So here in the NCERT we are given this very simple structure. This is what? This is a simple structure. And of course this is fine for us to answer the questions, right? Because if there is a question coming in JEE or NEET, means they will usually go with this structure only. This is a structure that we need to keep in mind whenever they ask us about the PHBV. Okay. But when you go further into the higher studies, you will be able to see how the actual structure of the PHBV can be represented in different way. But what is the application of? Because this is what? Biodegradable. It can be degraded by the bacteria in the environment, etc. It is used in orthopedic devices. It is also used in applications where we have to have a controlled release of the drug. It is used in medicinal packaging, etc. So all these are the applications of the PHBV. So if you see, the summary, right, they are used in bone tissue engineering, wound dressing, wound covering mat. They can be used for cardiovascular stunt. So because it is biodegradable, it is degraded within the biological systems. It is used for joint orthoplasty. It is also used for what? Agricultural releasing systems, etc. So wherever you see this medicinal related, or the biological system related use of polymer, right, just keep in mind what is it? PHBV. Then we also have one more biodegradable polymer. What is it? Nylon 2, nylon 6. Already we have seen some of these. These are what? Polyamides. Why this nylon 2, nylon 6 comes? We will see. Glycine, it's a 2 carbon. NH2CH2COH, glycine. With amino caproic acid, already we have talked about amino caproic acid. Remember, caprolactam, when you do hydrolysis, we will get what? Amino caproic acid. They undergo polymerization. So we'll see what will be the actual, so NH2, CH2, COOH. So this is the glycine part. Then we will write the amino caproic acid, CH2 5 times COOH. So here we will remove the hydrogen from the amino group and OH from the carboxyl group. This year also it is going to continue. So we will have to remove, because when there is a continuation of the chain means we will have to remove the hydrogen from amino group here and OH from the carboxyl group. See what is going to be the final structure? NH, repeating unit structure, CH2, CONH, this is the amide part. CH2 5 times CO. In fact, they are asking us, can you write the overall structure? This is what the structure of nylon 2 nylon 6. Why the name nylon 2 nylon 6? Glycine has got 2 carbons. Amino caproic acid has got what? Totally CH2 5 times COH, means what? 6 carbons. That is why nylon 2 nylon 6. Remember, we have seen nylon 6, 6. Nylon 6. Nylon 6 has only one monomer. Caprolactam has got 6 carbons. Then we have even discussed about nylon 6, nylon 10. Hexamethylene diamine and then sebacic acid. Sebacic acid is what? It's a 10 carbon dicarboxylic acid. Then in the end, right, we have some polymers of commercial importance. Polypropene, it's in short we call it as what? PP. What is the monomer for that? Propene. What is propene? CH2 double bond CH, CH3. There is unsaturation. If this unsaturation is removed, means the pi bond is removed, then we will be able to form the polymer. This is what? Polypropene. So where is it used? It is used in manufacturing of the ropes, toys, pipes, fibers. Then we have polystyrene. Already we have seen this. So styrene is what? We don't have much space to write the structure, but yeah. So we'll write the structure over here. Styrene is what? CH, benzene ring, double bond CH2. So here if you remove the unsaturation, we will be able to form the polymer. All these are what? Addition polymers, polystyrene. Where is it used? It is used as an insulator, wrapping material, manufacturing of the toys. So all these are what? The applications where there is an overlap. Remember, I said something that when you have questions by giving the applications, they will sometimes ask about the polymer. There they will be generally going for what? The specific applications. Like you see polystyrene, right? It is used in making of the radio and television cabinets. This is something that we can remember. PVC, generally PVC pipes, right? We will see polyvinyl chloride. What is vinyl chloride? CH2 double bond CHCl. Remove the unsaturation, we will be able to form the repeating unit of the polymer. This is also what? Addition polymer. Where is it used? Water pipes, of course. Vinyl flooring, handbags, raincoats, all these are what? Made up of PVC. Then we have urea formaldehyde resin. This we have seen. This resin can form what? Cross-linking also. All that we have discussed previously. What is it? It is used for the making of unbreakable cups and laminated sheets. This is also example of what? The urea formaldehyde polymer is an example of thermo setting polymer along with bakelite. So all these are what? Formaldehyde polymers. Bakelite is what? Phenol formaldehyde. Then we have what? Urea formaldehyde. Then we have glyptol. So glyptol is what? Ethylene glycol and phthalic acid. So what is phthalic acid? Benzene ring, we have 2 carboxylic groups in ortho position with respect to each other. Already we have seen this. Where is it used? Paints and lacquers. So remember, there will be always a question based on the structure. Then we have bakelite. It's a 3-dimensional cross-linking polymer. And also this is example of our what? Thermosetting. Phenol and then formaldehyde. Okay. So it's a 3D structure of bakelite. The linear intermediate that is formed is what? Novolac. So where is it used? Remember the specific applications, right? Electrical switches is a very common example that people talk about. Handles of utensils, because it will be what? Very hard, infusible substance. It is used in the manufacturing of combs. Electrical switches. Handles of the utensils. Like you see these cooking utensils and all that, right? You'll see the handle will be very hard. That is made up of what? Bakelite. Even computer discs also. Along with that, right, we have one more example that is not there in the NCERT, but it's something that we should discuss because it's already asked in a couple of the previous years. That is PMMA. What is it? Polymethyl methacrylate. So this is used in what do you say, decorative glassing, etc. So what is it? It can be also called as lucite plexiglass. You can also call it as what? Perspex. What is it? Methyl methacrylate polymer developed from that. Look at this. What is it? CH2 double bond C will have a CH3 CO2 Me. Polymer means we have the unsaturation, right? Remove the unsaturation. Then we will be able to form the polymer. Okay, so this is what? This is an addition polymer. Okay, so PMMA. What is it called as? Polymethyl methacrylate. And where is it used? Decorative glassing, etc. And apart from that, right, we'll just quickly go through some of, these are little bit additional points. Maybe this might give us some edge when it comes to competitive examination. Saran, right, it's a copolymer of vinylidene chloride. What is vinylidene chloride? CH2 double bond CCl2. Geminal dihalide. Okay. Then ABS rubber, right? So look at how the name comes. Acrylonitrile, buta-1,3-diene and styrene. That's why the name ABS. ABS is what? It's a copolymer of 3 monomers. Acrylonitrile, buta-1,3-diene and then styrene. So in case of saran, right, they will just ask us, if at all there is a question, they will ask, saran contains which of these following monomers. So what is the thing we need to keep in mind? Vinylidene chloride. Okay. Then thickol. So thickol is basically a synthetic rubber. It's a copolymer of what? Ethylene chloride and sodium tetrasulfide, Na2S4. Thickol is what? It's a synthetic rubber. Then we have dinyl. Dinyl is what? It's a copolymer. See all these, right? We don't need to get too much into the details of it. Just sometimes. I'm not saying, we'll get questions definitely from this. Sometimes. Okay. Dinyl is what? It's a copolymer of vinyl chloride and acrylonitrile. And it's got a very specific application. What is it? It is used in the making of the human hair wigs. Okay. Silk is what? It's a natural polymer. It's a natural polyamide fiber. So where do we obtain the silk from? It is obtained from the cocoons of the silkworms. Thermocol, right? It is foamed plastic. So where we blow the air through the polystyrene, right? We'll be able to molten polystyrene. We'll blow the air. We'll be able to obtain what? Thermocol. Super glue. So super glue is what? It's a polymer of methyl alpha cyanocrylate. So from this, right? So what is methyl alpha cyanocrylate? So this is the structure. Okay. So the anionic polymerization rate of this methyl alpha cyanocrylate will give us what? Super glue. So just know the additional things. ABS rubber, then we have thickol, then we have what? Thermocol. Thermocol is what? When you blow the air through the molten styrene, we'll get what? Thermocol. Then maybe a little bit about the other saran or dinyl. Silk, of course, is the natural polyamide. This can be a possible one. Okay, so NCERT is not given, but in some books, right, other state boards and all that, they might have mentioned about the silk. Okay, so this is about the little bit of additional point. So here we don't have to go details into how the polymerization mechanism happens and all that, but just the idea of the particular names of the polymer and the monomers. So with this, right, we completed the polymer NCERT review. So the prominent areas in terms of questions, I am again taking a relook at it. One is the polymer monomer. So they can give us a polymer, ask what are the monomers. They can give us the monomers, ask us what is the polymer. Then we have polymer examples. Which of the following is thermosetting polymer? Which of the following is a elastomer? Like that. Classification based examples. Then we can have questions on applications. Like, they'll give us a application and ask us what is the corresponding polymer, or they will give us a polymer and ask us what is the corresponding applications. Okay, and then of course we can have the questions based on the structure, the repeating unit structure rate. That is another possible question. Okay, so just while you are after this video, while you are reviewing your lecture notes or the NCERT again, make sure that you will keep an eye on these kind of areas when you are looking for what are the probable questions. So all the very best, and we'll see in the next chapter.